Hey everybody, welcome into Going Public. I am Harry McCullough, Terrebonne Port Commission Executive Director. Mr. David Outlay is here. Hey, thanks so much for being with us, Dave. And as always, got a lot going on with the port. It's always a busy time of the year for you guys. It has been a busy year, but a time for reflection for a lot of us who a guy that made a difference from this area.
Yeah,
sure.
I want to offer my condolences to the Smith family. Clifford Smith did a lot for Terrebonne Parish. He was instrumental in getting the port set up and running, and he did a lot of work on the front end, and he's just been good all the way around. And I didn't have a chance to make it to his service, but I just wanted to let the family know that I mean, he was an icon in this area. He was a great man, and really appreciate what he's done for me. We lost a big guy.
Right.
Just,
no doubt, his family and a long history in this parish as not only citizens but companies as well, and all the levees and reconstruction and all the infrastructure that's going in here. Clifford Smith touched a lot of lives in that way for sure. So
yeah, and he made a huge impact in this area.
So he'd definitely be missed for sure. He's a good friend of my mom's. I think they went to high school together. So old Terrebonne High. So Dave, let's talk about what's happening with the port and what's going on. So what's the latest?
So we're going to get into all of this, but we're going to talk about the H&C maintenance dredging. It's in progress and advancing. We're also going to talk about the continuing work with the state and federal government on both the deepening and the maintenance, and also talk about the legislature that's going to start March 14th.
March 14th, the day before the Ides of March 15th, of course, Julius Caesar. Hey, let's talk about the maintenance dredging. Enough of my William Shakespeare knowledge, but what's status or as far as dredging right now?
All right, so if you recall, the original project started last July, okay? And it was for 514,000 cubic yards. Hurricane Ida increased that total to a little over 1.5 million, so it gave us about 1 million more cubic yards. The Corps received 12 million in October for dredging due to Hurricane Ida. So for the current fiscal year, FY22, the Corps is scheduled to receive another 12.6 million. Some of those funds are being applied to the modification to dredge Cat Island Pass, and the remainder of funds will be used for agency inland dredging if we have money left over. We anticipate we will, and when I say inland dredging, I mean north of Cocodrie. So there's some spots that are shallow that we can go in and just kind of hit them and get them flatter than what they are now. So Terrebonne Bay and Cat Island Pass contract was awarded last July to Weeks Marine. The 30-inch dredge, Ellefson, began dredging on November 24th. The contract has been modified twice to increase the volume and length of cut in the bay and the dredge Cat Island Pass. So the total bay volume that we're going to remove or they already removed, was 1,510,000 cubic yards. And that was a 10-mile stretch total length of cut. So they went from mile 1 to mile 11. Mile 1's by the sea buoy, mile 11's a little bit past Cocodrie or around Cocodrie. So the total cost was 11.05 million. 5.45 million additional money. 5.45 additional was 5.6 in fiscal year 21. So we had some money in 21 when we awarded it. It didn't spend it because they didn't do anything. They demobbed with the hurricane. They came back and they got all the contract stuff straight. So part of the contract that they're doing now is some of the money we had in 21. Some of it is money we got from the hurricane, which is 12, a little bit over 12 million. Keep in mind, we're still going to get another 12 million for fiscal year 22. So Cat Island Pass, the mod was issued. The total let me back up. Terrebonne Bay work was completed January 17th. So that 1,500,000 cubic yards is gone. They finished.
Where does that go, by the way?
To the west. All they do is pull up. If you picture a flat plate that is a 12-foot deep, and it's all sand and silt, and then we come right in the middle of it and we dig a 3-foot trench, and that's the Homer Navigation Canal. It's 15 feet, but the water rushes over it from east to west, and it just constantly silts it in. So until we get a jetty on the east side of the channel to block that flow, we're gonna
We're going to be doing this.
We're going to have dredging all the time, and
And they
sometimes
cut it to 18 feet this time. Right?
We're right. It should have been 15 feet with 2 foot of maintenance. But the way those dredges work, they just cut a certain swath, and it just ended up at 18. So we got 18 feet of water from mile 11 all the way down to mile 1. And that total cost was 11.5 million, 0.05 million, and the Terrebonne Bay work was completed on January 17th. So Cat Island Pass, they had to modify the contract to add Cat Island Pass. Total Cat Island Pass volume is an additional 1,275,000 cubic yards. Yeah. Total length of cut is 3.6 miles, but remember they go down to 22 feet here. Okay, so that's why it's more. So the total length of cut 3.6 miles, and they going from mile 0, which is the sea buoy, to mile minus 3.6, was really out into the Gulf, and that's where you get to the natural 20 to 25 foot contour of water there. It's a natural that you don't have to dredge past that. All right, so the total contract mod cost $8.86 million. So they began January 24th, 2022, which is right after they finished the bay, and they should be completed by mid-April, and if there's no major weather delays. All right, so the inland dredging, like I said, the Corps is just preparing a scope of work for contract advertisement for the inland stuff, pending the amount of money that we're going to have left over. Okay, now the next bullet is the Corps is continuing the counting on receipt of the full president's budget. So it's going on right now. You hear the talk about the debt ceiling and all that stuff.
Sure.
Well, they punted it, and on February, I think February 18th, I believe, is the date that they have to do something by. They have to raise the debt ceiling, or the government's going to shut down. Like
it was right before Christmas, and they put it in February.
So they still haven't got the $12 million. The fiscal year starts in October, which was last October, and we were supposed to get $12.6 million. Because of the debt ceiling issue, okay, that keeps getting pushed until they actually raise the debt ceiling. Then they'll go ahead and put all the money out. So.
Oh, see, I thought it was the opposite. I thought they were putting money out and saying, "We'll pay for it later."
No. So anyway, so that particular
So
item.
you're waiting on that.
They're waiting. They're still waiting on the 12 million. They're going to get it. I mean, it's already approved. It's already in the budget. They just got to formally approve it. Okay. So now that the well, go ahead. I'm finished with the maintenance.
But
okay?
let's talk a little more about the HNC and the maintenance dredging that is going on.
Yeah.
So what's the status on that? Because that's been such a critical issue.
Right. So the bay's finished. Okay, and they're working on Cat Island Pass, and they expect it to be finished in April. Okay, so. It's going to be done in April, and right now, what the Corps is telling me is they're on a very, very tight budget, so they're spending money. They're doing what you just said, but they're not making. So they're actually funding this. The work they're doing now, they still have money for, but pretty soon they're gonna need that $12 million. Okay, right. and at that point, they're gonna have to fund it themselves until they get the $12 million. So it's just the way it is.
When you do all that, and that's mostly down further by Cocodrie and those. Do you ever start coming north?
That's what we're planning on doing. This will be one of the first years we've had. We thought we were going to have extra money a few times, but it always tends to not work out. But this time, once we get that $12 million, we're going to have I don't want to estimate how much, but it could be in the $3 to $4 million range, maybe even $5 million. Not sure. So at that point, once they know, they're already putting together a project, and they're just going to put it out on the street to bid it from whatever sections they want to bid, whatever the money will give us. Okay, so there's a few, like I said, there's a few areas where it shoals in, and they're just going to come in and blow it out. Most of the times, the boats can go through that. It's a small section, and it's not that shallow, but because in the bay it gets to 12 feet. What I'm talking about here might be 14 feet, you know, and so we just need to get up there and clean some of that out, and hopefully we're going to be able to do all of it.
We had talked about utilities and trying to find utilities that were under there and the cost of all that. And
so that's a deepening.
So where are we at with that?
Okay, so that's the deepening. So, that deepening is equally as critical as the maintenance. Both issues have a major impact on the local economy. The deepening is a very large capital project, estimated to cost about $350 million. So we're going to go from 15 feet to 20 feet. we can't start digging until the lock and floodgates in place, which has been awarded. It's in the works. So we're looking down the road 3 to 4 years. We should have that clear, and we should be able to start. So meanwhile, we have over 34 utilities, which is anything from oil field pipelines, electric lines, sewer lines, water lines that cross the channel. Okay, and they need to be investigated, located, and lowered or removed. Okay, so that's a tedious job. I mean, it takes a long time, and it can be very costly. So basically, if it's an oil field pipeline, we locate the pipeline, we get the right of way that Total Naked put it there. Then we meet with the oil company, and they ultimately end up doing the lowering, and we have to pay them, but we have to monitor it, make sure they don't, spend too much money, but it's their work to do, and we have to pay them for it, okay? And the state actually pays them. So,
So GIS is doing a lot of that?
Yeah, GIS Engineering is the firm that has been selected to do that work, and our anticipation is we complete that in 3 years.
Yeah.
We hope we do. So we need to.
No, that's good. I tell you, we're going to take a break here in just a second. But when we come back, I want to ask you a little bit about that. If that's a hindrance to anybody, as obviously where the port is, and while this work is being done. So let's take a break. We'll be coming back with more Going Public right after this.
A new company with a lot of history, GIS Engineering has rapidly grown its brand around an experienced team of professionals. GIS Engineering is a full-service planning, engineering, procurement, and construction management company specializing in coastal protection and restoration, upstream and downstream industrial, and transportation infrastructure projects. Putting people first, GIS Engineering, a new company with a lot of history.
In South Louisiana, storms are a way of life. Every storm poses a different threat, whether from flooding or hurricane-force winds. At All South Consulting Engineers, we help protect our people from these disasters. Before a storm, we work with our leaders to prevent catastrophic damage. After the storm, we help get the resources needed for rebuilding. We have helped our cities, parishes, and school boards recover over $2 billion to rebuild our community. We'll be here for the next one.
Everybody, welcome back to Going Public. We were talking with David Rabelais, and we're talking to the Terrebonne Port Commission, and it's good to have you here on Going Public. When we left, we were talking about the deepening and how it's critical that we go down and make it deeper. Is that holding us back right now as a port, as a region, because it's not as low as it could be?
Well, yeah, absolutely. We could have a lot more work in this area, in this region. Our shipyards and our fabrication yards can be 100% utilized, and right now they might be 60% utilized, or 50%. I don't know what it is, but it's definitely not 100%. But you get that channel at 20 feet and you maintain it at 20 feet, and it's going to open the floodgates. Right. That's not, no pun intended. Yeah, it's going to open the floodgates for the work. Thomas, one of my tenants will call me and say, look, we just lost another job. A job they won. They bid, they won, but on closer consideration, the company looks at the depth and they say, no, we're not coming in. And they want to come in. It's the best price, but that's what we deal with constantly.
Yeah.
And it's very frustrating.
Yeah, this is an area we're trying to diversify, trying to get into wind. You see wind stuff, you see hydrogen stuff. There's things on the horizon, but yeah, we infrastructure-wise, we've got to be ready for them.
Yeah, so now today, the work in Terrebonne Parish is 5% off in the fabrication, 5% oil field, 95% everything else. Wind energy, government vessels like the Corps, the Coast Guard. They're building that huge vessel for that fishing community. I don't know if you saw it. If you go down Industrial Boulevard, you can't miss it. It's right behind their facility. So they're diversified. I mean, and oil field is a lot less than it's ever been. So we're fabrication, our niche is fabrication, and we can fabricate anything. It doesn't matter.
Right.
It just so happens that for the last 30 or 40 years, the oil field needed
been
all the
platform,
fabrication.
right.
Now guess what? The wind energy farms.
We got a big wind farm.
They need
They need
platforms
platforms,
too.
right?
So who better to do it than us? So as long as it creates jobs, I mean, we want to do whatever fabrication is needed, you know? So back to the pipeline lowering, okay? So the first phase is going to be from Cocodrie to the Gulf, okay, the bay. And that's where they have the 14 pipelines or lines that they've found. Now, the Corps, it's kind of complicated, but the Corps mandates that you have, and for a long time it was 4 foot of cover. That's all you needed. From the mud line to your pipe, you needed 4 foot of cover. All right. Well, the Corps stepped in the last 10 years or so, and they changed that, and they wanted 10 or 15 feet, and it depends on what type of pipeline it is. If it's a gas pipeline, it's one thing. If it's an oil pipeline, it's something else. If it's a water line, it's something else. So they actually have to go, the engineers are actually going to have to go sit down with the Corps, with each pipeline, and say, okay, how about this one? How much cover do we need? How about this one? You know, and it's kind of a fictitious thing. Right. I don't think we need it. I don't think we need to lower any of them, right, in my humble opinion, except maybe right at mile 10 or 11. There's 2 of them right there that we need to lower. Everything else is below 20 feet. But they want that cover, so we might have to lower them 20 feet to get the cover that they want.
Is that an environmental? They're trying to
I think it's a safety thing, right, you know, for people hitting it. You know, but there's areas where instead of silting in, the silt is removed from the channel just because of the environment, okay? And they got pipelines down there that are just sitting suspended with water under them and water over them, and they don't ever go back and lower them. Right. You know, so we kind of like a catch-22. So we're talking to the Corps and saying, listen, we know it's our responsibility to lower these pipelines. It's part of the local match, but y'all making it a lot more expensive for us. You know, let's sit down, and they're receptive to that. So hopefully we can sit down and come to the best bang for our buck.
We're trying to get money from the feds, and the feds are trying to make us spend more of it. So that is a funny little little merry-go-round.
There's a whole bunch of those.
So speaking of politics, you know, how's that affecting right now? I think they're doing a lot of the Mardi Gras up there right now. There's a lot of politicking going on up there.
Oh, yeah.
But how is that going to affect the port in this region?
Okay, so government funding's at the top of the list. We talked about that earlier. With February 18th, that was the date, funding deadline for appropriations to avoid a government shutdown. This ties into the agency maintenance dredging work because the fiscal year 22 funds are tied to this. We talked about that. The second thing that's going on is the SCOTUS vacancy, the Supreme Court of the U.S., and created by the retirement of Justice Breyer. Biden will name a nominee in February, so March could be consumed by the SCOTUS confirmation process, okay? So March is going to be going, they ain't not going to be able to do nothing. So the passage of the USICA bill, which is America Competes Act, which is another bill that's on the table, okay? And it's aimed to improve competitiveness against China and to seek to address supply chain issues and semiconductor chip shortages, okay? And this bill contains $52 billion in funds. So in my humble opinion, this is gonna be a higher priority than the Build Back Better bill for Democrats because it's a less of a money and they're gonna get some money, you know? So, and I say Democrat, I'm just saying legislature, you know, I mean, and then you have the Build Back Better deal. It's dead for now, but Senator Manchin has mentioned his willingness to start from scratch. And every time somebody asks him about the existing bill, he just cites inflation that, you know, existing, and we can't do it because of inflation because they wanted so much money. I mean, that thing was few trillion.
Better, and the infrastructure are 2 different bills. They sound alike because you're talking about building.
Exactly. But the infrastructure bill's passed. That's that 1 point something trillion.
Right.
And like 1.2 trillion. But that Build Back Better was like 3 or 4
yeah,
trillion. I mean, it
right.
kept changing. So,
Right.
but Congress did pass that $1 trillion Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act last year, at the president signing the law. The legislation invests $17 billion in ports and infrastructure and waterways, $25 billion for airports. These funds will address repair and maintenance backlogs, reduce congestion and emissions with electrification and other low-carbon technologies. Pay attention to that, okay? Keep an eye on reducing emissions and electrification and low-carbon technologies, because this is the green energy group, okay?
Right,
so they're
right.
giving all this money, this $1 trillion, but they want you to emit 0 carbons. And the governor has a task force, and they just accepted the task force. They're
2045.
whatever they
Want to be zero carbon.
yeah, they want to be 0 carbon to 2050. So it's going to cost a lot of money, and there are those who don't think it's going to make a difference,
Right.
even if we did that, you know, because it's not going to do anything to the. Anyway, not me. I mean, I'm just doing what I'm told.
I
But
gotcha.
but there's a lot of people that think that that
Well-
no matter how much you do,
Right.
you know, you cannot stop global warming.
Right.
And the question is, I mean, everybody agrees that there is global warming,
Right.
but the question is, who's causing it?
how are we gonna do
Who's causing it? If you stop every bit of hydrocarbon emission in the world, will global warming stop?
Then you have
Okay?
a volcano will
I mean,
set you right back. So it's tough, but it may be a good opportunity for us as far as natural gas,
Yeah, and-
nuclear.
Right.
Not that we're going to build a nuclear reactor anywhere around here, but those kind of things could help out with
Yeah,
that.
and I think it's good in that sense that I don't
Hydrogen.
think we ever going to get to 0 emissions, but I think it'll help us clean our act up a little bit, and hopefully,
Right, which is not a bad thing.
hopefully they'll throw the towel in before we have to spend too much money. Okay, but you know we'll see.
when you said SCOTUS, when you're talking about the Supreme Court, I was wondering where you were going, but you were saying just people will be distracted with it.
For 1
It's-
month,
they're
for
not
one-
going to be voting
for
on
1
the,
month.
on
They're
the
not voting on
agency.
no bills. They're just going to be focused on that.
I got you.
And that's how Congress works. So it's
No, I just
tough,
had to perk
you know?
up there for a
Yeah.
bit. So let's talk about on a state level. You know, those guys are going into session here pretty soon.
Right.
They're talking about redistricting. They've got a lot of stuff on their
Yeah.
plates as well. So what about on the state level, and what are we doing there?
So our big thing is the capital outlay bill. Okay, we that's where we get our money. That's where money comes in from the state. So from between now and the start of the session, which is the 14th of March, the governor is going to be building that capital outlay bill. And from everybody's requests, you probably got I'm just going to throw out some numbers. You probably got $3 billion of requests and $1 billion of the money.
Sure.
So that's how it always is.
He wants to build on.
And don't use those numbers.
No,
Don't take those numbers to the bank. But maybe a $1 billion in requests and a $500,000.
They
billion.
got a lot of money to spend.
Right. So everybody doesn't get money. So March 21st, the governor. The legislature starts on the 14th. On the 21st, the governor is scheduled to submit the capital outlay bill, budget bill, and it's called HB 2, House Bill 2, to the legislature. The bill travels through the legislative amendment processes with the session ended on June 6th. And a lot of times that capital outlay bill gets passed right before the end of the session. Sometimes it's the last bill passed. And it's just a lot of jockeying and negotiating
Oh, yeah.
and trying to. Everybody wants the money. You know?
He wants $1 billion for a new bridge in Baton Rouge. So I mean, that's just one of those things, but that's kind of where it's going.
Yeah, and then we received $101 million. The state did for the first installment of that $1 trillion Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act. Okay, and Louisiana expects to receive $6 billion overall from the bill. With the first batch of funds to go to work to improving drinking water systems and just
Right.
fresh water systems. There's there's still communities with a lot of lead pipes. They got to remove contaminants, ensure that rural and underserved communities have clean water. About 1 in 5 of the 1,300 municipalities and parish water systems in Louisiana don't meet Louisiana Department of Health and Environmental Quality standards. 1 in 5 out of 1,300.
Right.
So the state has, just in that issue, the state has $4 billion in needs.
Right. Yeah, it's interesting when you talk about it. Some of these older cities and lead and all of that kind of stuff. So it's interesting. Well, Dave, I know it never stops over there. There's always something going on, but we appreciate you keeping us informed about what's happening and fighting the good fight for us here.
And I appreciate y'all letting me come here and give y'all that information, because the more people know, the better off we are.
Absolutely. David Ravelay, the Executive Director of the Port Commission.
Thank you.
We'll be right back after this.